Hey, how are you? Having a dickens of a time today controlling light levels with a very sophisticated camera that I don't understand. So I seem to be just like it's overexposed and then it's too dark and I'm a silhouette, and it's a little better now. I had this idea that I would sit on this crappy bench and have a bird feeder over my shoulder so you could see some of my personal birds landing and chowing down. I love the birds and I love feeding them, and you're principally going to be able to just hear them. And if I get light or dark, just forgive that. It's too nice to be inside today. It's 61 degrees here in Stearns County. I'm sure warmer than that down in Mower County, and maybe a couple ticks cooler up in Long Prairie Grey Eagle. That's north of here, about 45 minutes. So here's what I want to put before you today on November the 2nd. It's everything that I talked about this morning, basically. And I want to approach it, an idea, kind of in an Asian way, kind of in an indirect, circular way. And let me just warm up to it. So I've kind of got like a part one and a part two. And part one is just kind of a preamble, just me kind of doing some storytelling, and I'll get to a point here if you stick with me. I've told you before that I have this sensational 20-acre property in the corner of this old farm. And what I love, there isn't anything that I don't love about it, but it's just the list of things that I adore about it, and I've adored for the 24 years that we've lived here, go on. And what I like a lot is my setup as a runner, because I'm still running. There's the old farm driveway that comes in off County Road 9. I'm 0.8 I'm almost a mile off the highway out there. And there's another driveway, the one I put in, so my friends and I could come and live back here on this cute little lake, two of my friends. And they got their own 20 acres. And what's great is that in the morning when it's dark and cold, I don't have to run on the highway where it's dangerous in the morning. It's like a track. It's like a big, round, private dirt track. And I've been running a long time on this farm and around the township when it's safe, when there's daylight. And I do a lot of great thinking. I do a lot of thinking about my classes. Let's not, in a self-congratulatory way, call it great. So the point is, this morning I was running, and I got to thinking about what I should talk about today and where we are in history, and I started thinking about the idea of falling, the idea of the fall. People can fall, for instance, and I hope you never do. Nations can fall. And what that made me think about really is something I haven't thought about in a long time, and I realized when I told the story today to my two Comp 1s at CLC in my classical mythology class. There I go, getting all white again, extra white, advanced white person, radiating whiteness. I haven't talked about this much, and I haven't thought about it in a long time. But 10 years ago, this last year, in the spring of 2010, I was finishing up my master's degree finally at St. Cloud State, so I could just in time for my 50s, so I could keep talking after wrecking that high school. And I was starting to get the idea that I was going to be okay. You know, the phone was ringing a little bit, and I got the thesis done. But in that semester, I needed another credit, just one credit. And a PhD named Richard Dillman, who's long retired from St. Cloud State, he decided that I should I needed one credit, and his thing was, okay, we're just going to put you as kind of an assistant to Jack, who was teaching at the time a 500 level Renaissance Lit class. Let's just try to tick this to the right a little bit. And it was easy at first, like the first half of the semester. I just kind of sat in there. I didn't read any papers. I don't even know what I was assisting. And Jack was, I think, 66 years old at the time. And things changed when he had a little stroke partway through the semester. He blew a little fuse in his head and he lost the ability to read for a while. And so they summoned me to a little conference room and sat me down, and I'm like, okay, we got a problem. We need someone to finish this course. We know you can do it. Would you be willing to teach it? I said, why are you willing to pay me? Well, they couldn't because of the way the contract was set up with teaching assistants. I was busted down all the way to a graduate teaching assistant, you guys, and I was overjoyed to have that work. I said, hell yeah, I'll teach the class. I'd be happy to teach it. There was a minor problem. What I know about Renaissance literature, you could put in a thimble. And on top of that, it was a 500 level class, which means it was a mingling of undergraduate students and graduate students. 600 is as high as it goes in the system, and that means all graduate. That means pretty darn serious. So, related to the fall, what that called me to do, among other things, I was preaching to the choir, you guys. I had actual English majors, not just people taking Comp 1 because they need the AA. And I can still see their tattoos and hemp necklaces from here, but I can't summon any of their, barely summon their faces. That's a long time ago, and that's many, many thousands of students ago. I got through it. I did all right, actually. They kind of liked me. And the amazing thing is that it called me on to, for the first time in my life, no, I'd read it once before with Father Carl at St. John's. I had to read Milton, okay? I had to read Milton's Paradise Lost, and it broke my back. Milton was an English poet in the 1600s who thought he was within striking range of being the next Shakespeare of England. I don't think he was even close, but he still was a genius, and he wrote a hell of a poem about the fall. Okay, that's what Paradise Lost is. It's a story first about the fall of Lucifer and how he swept 1/3 of the angels from the sky into the abyss, into the hell that they created. And it is also about the subsequent fall of Adam and Eve. And I got to the end of that class, and I was happy to have done it, but I also told myself, I'm through with John Milton. I'm done with that guy. I got the idea that he just didn't have the faintest idea as to what kind of man Christ was, but I'm still glad I tried it. So it takes a little audacity to decide with my little tiny Catholic imagination that approached his endless Protestant imagination that I didn't need him anymore, but I don't. And I'm taking a little too long to tell you that I have had my own imagining of things that happened before things began. And I've been talking all day about the idea that I've imagined the instructions that Christ got from God the Father before he came down here. I imagine the meeting happening in a celestial conference room with all the archangels and the choirs of archangels sort of floating around. And this is probably heretical, but I'm going to say it anyway because I think it's funny. I think it's true too. I think Jesus was told, okay, look, you're going to go down to that planet, you're going to save everybody, you're going to have 3 years to do it after a 30-year life as a carpenter, and then they're going to kill you in a way that's so horrible we're not even going to talk about it now. But I think his instructions were, go down to that planet and just be as cryptic and ambiguous with your language as you can. Just talk in metaphors all the time. Just tell them one parable after another. Tell them the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Tell them the kingdom of heaven is like a vineyard. Tell them the kingdom of heaven is like a casino. Okay, well, not that. But I'm taking too long to arrive at the idea that I think half the time the apostles were standing around going, what the hell are you talking about? But once in a while, he said things that were straightforward, dead simple, and clear. And now I'm thinking of the line where he said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Every syllable, it could be literature to you, it could be mythology to you. To me, it's the truth. And I have a feeling that that's the moment that we're inhabiting in history. So I'll never do this with the light levels again, but I just want to get this done. It's too nice to go in, you guys. It's too beautiful. That's what we're inhabiting tomorrow. I look with caution and nervousness on Election Day. And it's the violence and the self-loathing and the destruction that's happening in our greatest cities, beginning with Minneapolis, is already underway. So I hope Austin stays quiet tomorrow. Got a feeling Long Prairie Grey Eagle is going to be all right. How I wish I could grab fish tacos at my favorite restaurant there where I go before CIS. And I think we're in for a tumultuous period, a definitive period, like I keep saying, in history. This ain't regular history, you guys. This is different, and I would admit to being sad about it, to being heartbroken about it, because I love this country. So, 8 minutes in, 9 minutes in, let's just see what happens. Some observation. Here's what I want to do today. I want to read a real quick poem by Czesław Miłosz. I wanted to give you some news from poetry. And I also want to talk about the experience that I had reading your journal entries yesterday on the graveyard. And I might have a thing or two to say about the Old Man and the Sea in the next 20 minutes, but that'll mainly be a report on what kind of conversations we had with my 9 and my 10 o'clock class today. So let's start with the poem. I was looking this morning for a poem in which no one was harmed, just like a peaceful, quiet poem, no death for miles. And what happens when you pick up a 500-page book of poetry, the poem that you're looking for, you don't get to it. You find a poem that's really more appropriate for the day. The Fall. The death of a man is like the fall of a mighty nation that had valiant armies, captains and prophets, and wealthy ports and ships all over the seas, over all the seas. But now it will not relieve any besieged city. It will not enter into any alliance, because its cities are empty, its population dispersed, its land, once bringing harvest, is overgrown with thistles, its mission forgotten, its language lost. The dialect of a village, high upon inaccessible mountains. I think I told you they give us these little business cards. They make the greatest paper bookmarks. Okay, a couple things, just small things. This will make you happy, and I'm so glad that I can't see your faces, because you're going to be glad when I announce thing number one. You know how, maybe we've talked about this. How many times have you heard me say that? I know at Riverland, when kids walk up to a classroom and see that sign on the door that says teacher's gone, canceled, class canceled, they just party. And this might be one of those moments for you. I have to keep my classes in sync. These Comp 1s in Brainerd and Riverland in sync. I'm not going to be able to have class Friday for my morning people. And that means that you're only going to get 2 videos from me this week, which means the second one better be good with correct light levels. And the reason for that is because videography up at my college pulled a little switcheroo on me. I am driving up there to the college I'm just so tremendously lonesome for on Friday. We were going to do this in the morning. Now they're telling me they want to do it at 11 o'clock, which means, and it's an hour away, so I've got to drive up. We're going to take all my fancy gear. We're going to set it up in my office, the mics, everything. And I've already told you this, and we're going to leave it for a week, which means you're going to have, well, I told you, I got that GoPro. I should try to figure out how to use that thing. A couple vids next week won't look so great on Monday and Wednesday. And the reading's Thursday, so I won't miss any school because of the Joy Harjo event on November 12th. So 2 vids this week. Item 2, News from Poetry. KAXC Radio, which is the fantastic public community radio for the whole Northeast quadrant of the state of Minnesota, is going to interview me on Friday, and they always have me on the air. They always have me come on the morning show, and I do it often on this porch if it's warm enough. They give me a time, and they call me, and I got to be ready to go. And as you can guess, I'm excited talking to poetry about to just a small group of people. I'd read a poem to a dog. But it is extremely exciting for me, year after year after year, to have opportunities to talk to tens of thousands of people about poetry on the air for 5-6 minutes. And what's fun this time is they want to do it for the morning show, and I have classes in the morning. So we're going to have Katie Carter, the sort of the radio personality that runs that morning show. We're going to have her Zoom bomb into one of my classes and join us. And I told my students, they're excited about it. I said, don't get nervous. It's not going to be broadcast. It's radio. But let's do this together. Don't you want to watch me squirm and try to think on my feet? While they always ask me questions. And I'm very happy about that. Now, I've already mentioned the idea that we're getting 1,250 books, courtesy of the gracious, great-hearted people at the Olseth Foundation. It is up in the air about how or if I'll be able to get those books to you. There's like 15 schools that I've already rattled the name off of, and where we're going to get the books to Indigenous kids. And then Kelly McCullough and John Olseth and I decided that we're going to split the books 50-50 between the 2 schools. I don't know what dispersal is going to be like at Riverland. My dean freaked me out this morning because I wanted to just get them in the bookstore and have kids go get them in the bookstore. She's like, no, we don't want that. I'm like, what? Well, students are attending live class, some of them. Why can't they just go in the bookstore and get it? Well, she doesn't want me to do it that way. And then her next idea was that I would mail them. That freaked me out. I don't have time to mail 400 books and then charge that to my Verse Like Water series. It's going to crush me, or more accurately crush my budget. So here's what I'm going to do. Believe it or not, you can easily imagine this. After I do my rehearsal with a dummy address for the Zoom thing to a live YouTube feed, I'm gonna go out in the parking lot and we're gonna tell all the students taking English classes in Brainerd that Jeff Johnson is going to be in the east parking lot, and I'm going to be in my big half ton, and I'm going to be sitting up on the roof of it. It's parked right here because I hauled some salt up. That's how I cut my finger. I'm going to sit up on the roof, and I'm going to have boxes of books on the tailgate, and I want students to just come flying up and just grab a book. My classical mythology students in particular are so excited that I'm going to be on campus because we'll get to see each other. And my dean is pretty clear. She wants us to socially distance. She doesn't want it to last for more than a few minutes, and she doesn't want it to turn it into a hang. But I don't know how I'm going to get those classical mythology students to keep moving because we're like a family. So that's my plan for that. Regarding Old Man and the Sea, let me just, I'm so looking forward to that. Distributing books in the apocalypse out of a parking lot of a U.S. poet laureate trying to stay alive in a pandemic. It's actually kind of a magical thought. I got more time than that. I'm only at the 16-minute mark. Let's see. I'm going to try to keep it at 30. I did bad math there. So that's that. Now here's what I want to say now as I get a little bit chilly. I should have brought a sweater. I wanted to dress in black and white so everything would be clear today. I had a very amazing, I want to report this to you. I love so much that I get to make a living as a storyteller. And to put English teaching real simple, I make a living watching people think. I get to watch people think. And I've come to love the typed out journals as much as the handwritten, almost as much. Not quite, but almost. It's faster for sure. And I can get more feedback to you than I can with my arm. Usually it's just a flick of the pen, thank you. I make a crazy J with a smiley face. And because my arm is breaking down from writing on notebooks for 3.5 decades. But I simply want to tell you that my experience this is how I did it. I started with Riverland journals, doing it as my dad would say, back-asswards or ass backwards. I forget how he used to say that. In other words, I went to the October 27th assignment, which is the one that called on you to visit cemeteries. And it was an experience of profundity for me, and I'd just like to talk about it for a little while. I have more than once imagined running an English class entirely with journals, like no textbooks, no tests, no nothing. Hello, chickadee. And, I'd probably be taking it too far, but I imagined journals just being what would create the discourse for the community, for the class. And it was pretty dead simple. I told 110 people, visit a cemetery, walk around for a little while. And I want to report on what I saw. Now, I had 2 students tell me very briefly, and both their names start with A, and one of them's down there in Riverland, has an A in it. A student told me, I can't do this entry, Johnson. That's all they wrote in the assignment that they put in the box. My grandfather died this summer, and I'm having trouble dealing with the grief. Well, you know what I did. I gave the student full credit. I put 40 points in that box and kept moving. And in response, I said, I'm sorry if I broke your heart. I'm sorry if I made you sad. I had a student named Avery Anakala up in Brainerd. She dialed in on one big tombstone in the Evergreen cemetery up there. And it was huge. I guess it was like 10 feet tall. And the guy's name was John Ferris, I think. And he died in the 1880s. Brainerd's an old town. I know Austin and Long Prairie are too because of railroad. But Brainerd's really old. And what's great is that she wanted to look the dude up on Google, and she did. And she found out that he died in a year that contradicted what was on the tombstone. She also found out that he's the guy that started the bank in Brainerd. And I'm absolutely amazed by that she did that she took the time. No, I saw a lot of students reporting the same thing, but the journals were still as different as snowflakes. Many students remarked on the sound of the birds, that it seemed different than the birds that were in their yards. Many students, numerous students, reported that in the cemetery they felt like someone was watching them. And I kept writing in, or dictating in, someone was watching you, the ancestors. And I had a number of students report to me that they were nervous about the idea of going to a graveyard. Some reported great fear, even some I saw the word terror or terrified more than once. But almost to a student, many of them who had never gone before, they reported that once they were there for a little while and started walking beneath the sky that was described often and beautifully by you Riverlanders especially can write better than at my college, and I better not say that too loudly. The students there, many students reported that anxiousness quickly, very quickly, gave way to the solace and peaceful feeling that is available to anyone that spends time where our brothers and sisters are sleeping in the earth, each grave representing a man or a woman, each grave, each stone representing a human story. And I just was very amazed to have the experience of reading this. Some of the journal assignments that I've been giving out for years, like, I don't know if I'll do it or not this fall, but for years I've been saying, okay, draw a map of a place, and then that's important to you, and then tell me a story about something that happened at that place. That's like a 30-year-old idea rattling around in my head. The cemetery thing is new. And now I want to say something about death, because a number of you reported that you're nervous about it. And I simply want to say this, and I got to be careful too. 1789 was a pretty dark year, a very dark year. I'm going to qualify that. In 1789, we had a little something unfold called the French Revolution, and many tens of thousands of Catholics were killed in northern France. This is a major historic event. I know that the philosophers, or the philosopher and a half at Central Lakes College, and the people who teach intro to philosophy down at Riverland might tell you that, because I know our old philosopher did, Herbalilla, whose office I inhabit. He was a thinker, a logician, a rationalist, and a card-carrying atheist who believed that the French Revolution was the greatest thing that ever happened in humanity. I don't believe that. I believe that is the point where we started our tilt towards monstrosity. And here I'm saying stuff I can't prove. It's just theoretical, but it's in my heart. And again, I'm a feeler before I'm a thinker, and I'm telling you something that I feel. It is then that our species began to turn away from heaven and push God out of the public square. And it is then that we got a little crazy with rationalism and logic and the emergence of science and technology. Make no mistake, when we found, I've probably said this, I keep saying that, when we found that little cancer between my toes this spring and I had to have 2 surgeries, one for real, where I had to go under, I was so glad to have science and technology on my side, as well as not 1 but 2 brilliant surgeons. Happy to be a state employee, happy to have a $7,000 cutting-edge test that did a genetic look at that little spot in the cells that gave us good data. Very happy that I had science on my side. But let me just cut to it. Science right now, aided with a lot of money by just billionaires, is working at transcending death. Man is trying to become a god through technology now. A homo devo would be it. We are really trying to end death, and at your hearing, I'm going to proclaim that to be evil. I may be a long way from the material of a writing class right now, but I'm going to say that. At your hearing, I'm going to proclaim that to be evil. Some of this has to do with life extension, right? Figuring out ways to make our lives last longer. And I don't want to die anytime soon, so I'm not really shaking my fist at that. But I feel a great darkness when I encounter stories on the internet about the idea of mashing us up as cyborgs with technology. How many movies have been made about the idea that we could upload our consciousness to a computer, to a hard drive, to a thumb drive? I don't want to live on a hard drive. I want to live in the world as long as I can, and then, as Socrates said, I want to live as well as I can, and then when it comes time to die, I want to die as well as I can. I just think we are up a long road there, and maybe we're well up it with these iPhones, right? The phones that some of you can't tear your gaze from. You should admit that. I know I can't. In the pandemic, I'm spending more time than ever looking at screens. We live and die like characters in Shakespeare. You don't have to be afraid of that, especially you young ones. We live and die like characters in Shakespeare in just a few lines. And the idea that my life is going to have an endpoint is one of the most energizing ideas in my head. The idea that the horizon is closer than it is far. 61 years old Thursday. I've got 3 days to be 60 years old. I don't think I look at day over 59. That idea that I'm bound by finitude is a serious encourager, a motivator. It's what makes me get up and go in the morning. It's why I don't take sabbatical, because I got stuff to do while I'm here. And I hope you don't mind that I said all these things. Now, Old Man in the Sea, I can do this in 4 minutes. Get over to St. John's and upload this for you on the day it's due, Monday. The Old Man in the Sea is a great book. And I had a couple students, Tamara Peterson in my 10 o'clock class. I'll just report to you. She proclaimed that it was a little boring. So that's fine. I love Tamara. She's a mom, 42 years old. And Valerie, I love that you came in flying in with locked caps when you were telling me how much you loved that cemetery entry. But Tamara Peterson is also a mom of 4 of tiny children, and she didn't like the novel much. I had others defending it, and kind of the main thing we wondered about this morning was whether or not the story of Santiago is a story of failure. Most of us agreed, no. The dude proved he's a fisherman. It's a story of triumph. It's a story of being saved. And what I really like is that one student, who said that? Can't remember. I had a student this morning dial in on the relationship, the friendship between Santiago and that boy who's actually merging into a young man. I think it's one of the most heartwarming friendships in all of literature. I love relationships, in real life or otherwise. Literary, people getting along, people loving each other, and those two, I love their love for each other. I love to look at them looking at each other down there near the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm fond of those two. I also want to tell you, we've got actually 4 writers that I'm going to put before you. This is your easiest work. It's going to get a little harder with F. Scott Fitzgerald. But I do want to tell you that I've changed in the years as you're going to change too. Get ready. The things that you valued when you were young, maybe you will value less. Ideas that weren't important to you when you were young may become important later. And what I admitted to my Comp 1s this morning was that when I was a young man, I was nothing less than obsessed with the idea of looking for Christ imagery, for Christian imagery in literature, because it's just the way my head is wired, and you're probably getting sick of me talking about it, but I can't help it, who I am. I don't obsessively look for it anymore. I've just kind of moved on, but it's there, right? And the things that I've said about the Old Man in the Sea for years remain true. Great writers almost never are people of faith. They're almost always atheists. I've hosted 25 poets, every single one of them was an atheist or agnostic or unaffiliated. There's that idea that the smarter you are, the more educated you are, the more likely you are to be that way. And that's why I'm so glad I'm half stupid. But Faulkner, Hemingway, and F. Scott Fitzgerald were not men of faith. They more than once in interviews said that they never ever intended any Christian imagery in their stories. Well, Old Man in the Sea, really, Ernest Hemingway? I think that story is too big. There's just no way you can write your way or get around it. So we have, let's just rattle it off as I get near the half-hour mark here. 30 seconds to go, or a little past it. He's a fisherman, like the apostles. He's facing a monster, what's his name faced the devil. He's on water. He's saying the Hail Mary. You saw I hit that 30-minute mark and it cut me off. I think I was talking about the stigmata the fishing line cuts his hands, and that's kind of the wounds of Christ, the stigmata. And last image, just give me 10 seconds to get this out. When Santiago is walking up the beach, he leaves the marlin. It's been destroyed by the sharks. Only its snout its spear thing is there. And tourists are gawking at it, and they're like, what is going on? And he's heading up the beach, and he's carrying the mast of his ship that's, it's in the shape of a cross. So, I'm gonna make this vid. This one's gonna be really simple. I don't even know if I'm gonna drop any images into it. I'll get it to you. I might have more information about if books are gonna come your way. I've done enough work for this poetry reading. Kind of seems like I think so, but stay tuned. Stay safe and well too. Love you guys.